everybody. Here is a Sunday, and the book club meets again to discuss another very intriguing book. I mean, Runa, where do you find these books that are so very interesting looking? I remember The Garden of Evening Mists was similarly very intriguing. And this one is, I mean, the title itself, The Elegance of the Hedgehog. Good grief. Did anyone ever think of the hedgehog as an elegant animal? Hardly. So we're itching to find out in what way the hedgehog can be called elegant, right? So Runa Mukherjee is the presenter today. She's been in the central services, that is the railways. She's been in the private unit also, and she continues to be a member of various boards of companies. And above all, what is important to us is that she's a good reader. She reads a lot, and she reads very well, and she presents what she reads very well too. So Runa, welcome. We look forward to hearing what you have to say. So the mic is yours, and we are recording, and you can share screen. Your co-host, please go ahead.
Okay. So, hello, everybody. It's my pleasure to present this book, which intrigued me when I read it several years ago. And it was fun reacquainting myself with it. But I must say that my views have undergone a change during the intervening time.
Yes, we can.
Okay. So, The Elegance of the Hedgehog by Muriel Barbery. Now, about the author, she's a very young author, really, a French author, and she has written this book in French, and it has been translated into many languages. The English translation actually is pretty good. She is an erstwhile professor of philosophy. She taught philosophy for a number of years, and she has published 5 books till date. The fact that she's a philosophy teacher, it comes out in this book rather a lot. I have not read any of her other books, but I plan to. And in this book, at least, philosophy takes center stage. So her first book was called Gourmet Rhapsody. It came out in 2000, and it takes place in the same posh apartment building as The Hedgehog, which was published in 2006. A film of The Elegance of the Hedgehog was made in 2008. The book was a bestseller and enjoyed several awards and top position in various reading lists. Okay, I'm plunging in. This story is a very cerebral story. It's very abstract. And the storyline is a little thin. So I'm going to start off with a discussion of the main characters, because the entire book is presented through the viewpoint of 2 characters. And they speak in the first person. And in the book, when you read the text, you will find that one of them, it's normal text, and the other one, it's a little different font. So you know that, it's 2 different characters talking, because they don't announce their names. They merely speak. And it's either in the form of thoughts or in the form of a journal. So I will talk about the characters first. So you have the main characters. You have Madame René Michel, the concierge of this apartment block. Which is in a very posh locality of Paris. And it's number 7 Rue Grenelle. And there are about 8 or 9 flats. And they're very large, spacious flats, as we get to know from the comments of various people. And all the residents, all the owners of these flats are very rich, very cultured, so-called, very cultured, very educated, and are in influential positions. Um, then you have Paloma Joss, a 12-year-old girl who is inhabitant of one of the flats. Her father is a minister in the government, and her mother is is also an intellectual. Her elder sister has studied philosophy. So that's the background. They're very, very well off, and she has not known anything other than this rich and influential life. The third character is Kakuro Ozu. He is a rich Japanese gentleman, and sort of one third of the way through the novel, he comes in on the scene because he's bought one of the flats which falls vacant. And he's very critical. There are a host of minor characters whom we get to know through the comments of the two main characters, which is René Michel and this Paloma Joss. They are the ones who basically narrate. And we get to know them very well. They're very skillfully delineated, and you must admit that it's very difficult to do that when you're maintaining the integrity of the point of view of somebody who's commenting on them, because obviously their viewpoint has to be limited. But nevertheless, the whole scene sort of comes alive very well. Okay, so I start off with Madame Michel. Now, this I have taken, by the way, I mean, I've taken these pictures from the film. I didn't want to have the film impinge on the book because they're two different media, actually, two different forms of art. But it helps to have something to think about when you talk about an abstract book like this. So I've taken it from the film. This is Madame Michel. She's a concierge, very typical, very typical in her appearance. She wears sloppy clothes, and her hair is not done up much. She's got that grumpy look on her face, and everybody, when they see her, they hardly notice her. She's just the concierge. She goes about doing all that she has to do to maintain the building, and for them, she's Madame Michel and nothing more. They don't think of her as a person who may have her thoughts and feelings and what she is. But inside, she is an autodidact, meaning she's taught herself. She's very widely read in literature and philosophy and the arts. She scores all the libraries of Paris, and she has her favorites. She has her favorites in all forms of art, but particularly she loves classical music. She loves films, and particularly Japanese films, and she loves art. She loves painting. She loves still life. And one of her favorites is the Dutch still life artist Vermeer. She loves Tolstoy, and she keeps quoting from Anna Karenina. uh, and there is a Japanese filmmaker. I haven't researched this. I don't know whether he's real or fictionalized. But there is a person called Ozu, who is a director filmmaker who apparently has made very interesting Japanese films. And she has a very keen appreciation for the refinement and beauty of simplicity. She perceives moments of beauty, when things seem to, she sees a camellia in bloom and, a wind movement. And she seems to think that then, time sort of freezes, and it sort of immortalizes that moment in beauty, and it goes beyond time. So, I mean, these are the refined feelings that she has. And it's something completely different from what other people perceive her to be. Then you have Paloma. Incidentally, we do not get to know her name till about two-thirds way through the book, because she's writing a journal, and she naturally talks about I, me, what I did, and you don't get to hear her name at all till towards the end. So she's a very precocious 12-year-old, very super intelligent, and a very keen observer of what goes around her, and she seems to have the ability to see through people. She knows, they're saying something, and she says, but actually this is what they mean, and this is what they're like. And she reports on their conversations in a very, very uh, satirical way. She has a very cutting sense of humor, in fact. But she also appreciates very keenly the beauty in art and music and language. She loves haiku poetry, and she also sees beauty in simplicity. Uh, and she also perceives art as a means of achieving moments of sublime beauty, which uplifts the soul. Now, these two, if you notice, are characters which are sort of point and counterpoint. They belong to two completely different classes of society. We will talk about classes a lot in this book. So, but at heart, they're kindred souls, and they sort of behave in exactly the same way. And I'll go on more about it in a while. Then you have Kakuro Ozu. He's a Japanese gentleman, a very cosmopolitan, rich Japanese gentleman. Uh, he buys a flat which has fallen vacant in the building, and he goes about completely transforming and changing it, bringing in Japanese elements, sliding doors and paintings and, minimalistic decor and so on. And it's as if, he brings in a breath of fresh air in the building. And everybody in the building, all the other residents are also very, very interested in him. They're curious about him, and they want to know more about him, but they're too polite to ask. Um, Now he immediately recognizes Paloma and Madame Michel for what they really are. He doesn't go by the fact that the one is a very young schoolgirl and the other is a grumpy concierge. He he goes into their soul, as it were. He recognizes that both are extremely intelligent and have a very profound view and understanding of life. His role in this, which I will discuss later, is that, according to me, a catalytic force. He breathes life into them, and he engenders a hope and a belief that, you can change your circumstances, that things don't have to be as you find them, that you can actually move forward beyond the meaninglessness of existence. The meaninglessness of existence is a very major theme in the book, which I'll talk about later. And then you have this minor characters. I'm not listing all of them, but I've divided them into two main categories. One is Manuela Lopez. She's one of the cleaning ladies. So, and she's the cleaning lady with whom Madame Michel is very, very friendly. She appreciates her because Manuela is also a very genuine kind of person. She may not be very intellectual, but she is very shrewd in assessing what is true, what is false, what is hypocritical, what is not. And she comes out with views which are, which are very, 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 very penetrating. Then he doesn't appear much, but he's critical in the end, is Zhezhen, who is a homeless pavement dweller. Somewhere down the street, there's this guy who lives in a cardboard box, and he cackles and laughs, and he sort of laughs at everybody who passes by, thinking that they're all meaningless. All these important, influential, rich people who pass him by, he sort of is very, uh, uh, um, you know, uh, scoffing of them. Now, the other residents of 7 Rue Grenelle, you have the Joss family, to which Paloma belongs, her father, mother, sister. And then you have the de Broglie family, who are also very rich, old merchants, traders, and very, very, they have some aristocratic background, and they're very snobbish, and they're very proud of their family heredity and so on. And then you have the Saint Nieces, of which you have Olympe. Olympe is a young girl who again is slightly different. She sort of discards, the rich and socialite kind of a life which is assured her by her family background, because she wants to be a veterinarian. She's absolutely taken up with animals and the love for animals, particularly the cats, and she's learning to be a vet. So she also does not judge things by their appearances. So she's, again, a little different. And then you have the family of the Arthons, who actually are the star in her first book, in this author's first book. And this Monsieur Arthons is a world-renowned gourmet critic who dies, and it's his flat that Kakuro Ozu sort of buys and takes over. So they are there as a background, but I'm not going to harp too much on them. Now, the themes, most important. So this is, as I said before, a very, very philosophical book. The prime theme is, what is the meaning of existence? And the author is depicting a life which we are all very familiar with. You have basically two classes. You have the very rich and privileged class, and you have the others who are the working class, who have come up from very poor backgrounds, maybe not good opportunities for education or anything like that, and who are working hard for a living. And it's both of them, and because they're coexisting, they have a window on each other and how they perceive life. And uh, from Paloma and from Madame Michel's point of view, which is the view we are presented with in this book, they both say that all of this is very superficial and it's very, very Cartesian. Now, I must admit, I had to go and do some research and find out exactly what was this Cartesian view of life. You know, René Descartes, who was a 18th century, 17th century philosopher. Now, his was basically a materialistic one. What you see is what you get. You know, I'm simplifying a lot, and I'm sure there's more finesse to it. But basically, it is in a way a sort of reductionist thing, that this is the physical world, and it is defined by what we see, what we feel, what we see, what we hear, and where we are, and that's it. And both Madame Michel and Paloma think that this mundane life is very absurd and very futile. It lacks meaning because everybody just is born, does whatever their status in life calls upon them to do, and they do, you know, they get married, they have children, they bring up the children, and then they again keep going round and round, and then they die. And it all seems very futile and pointless. However, both of these two characters, both these two, they find that there are moments of great beauty which they experience, emotion and feelings which they experience when they're listening to a piece of beautiful music, when they're observing either nature, you know, trees, for instance, or generally nature, flowers, or a film which eternalizes a particular moment, where emotion, feeling, grace, perfection sort of comes into being and is held and is kept out of time, as it were. That's when they feel that their souls are uplifted, and this is the meaning of life. You know, if you can achieve this somehow, then this is the meaning of life. And they feel that, and they find it hard to reconcile with their uh, actual day-to-day mundane existence. So this is a very recurrent and important theme. And then you have class distinctions. Both Paloma and Madame Michel, from their points of view, talk about it. Paloma says, you know, they don't really see others other than them. They only see what they want to. And she comments somewhere. She says, you know, when they see Madame Michel, they only see a void because they don't know her. They're not bothered. It's not something they recognize. And Madame Michel also feels this, by the way, that when they look at me, they don't see me at all. They're just seeing a concierge, and it's okay. That's it. And then there's a lot on liberal hypocrisy. There's a lot of tracts which talk about, you know, liberalism. There are many of these inhabitants of Rue Grenelle profess liberal views. You know, they feel for the poor, and they feel there should be upliftment and democracy and freedom and education and all that sort of a thing. But at the same time, when they're living their lives, they ignore completely a person like that homeless fellow, Tejen, or Madame Michel, or, for instance, Manuela Lopez, for instance. All of these things, it makes no sense to them. Now, that is hypocrisy of a sort. And there's a lot on class psychology, what makes them like this. And I think the last thing which comes across is personal growth, resolution of this conflict as an internal conflict. So I've already mentioned this points of view. So according to Renée, now Renée's background, Renée, that is Madame Michel, her background, she was born in a very poor peasant family where they morning to morning till night, her parents only got up and worked, ate, and went to sleep. They produced some children in between, and that's it. And very peculiarly, they didn't talk. There was no interaction within the family because there was no time. And it was continuous drudgery, no speech. And Madame Renée says, nobody called me by my name. They said, you, or do this, do that. I mean, only what was required for just existing. And it is only when she went to school, she was put into a school, and her teacher called her Renée, that she says, oh my God, that's me. I have an identity. And that's when she was very intelligent. So she took to learning like a fish to water. She could think, she could analyze, and she was way ahead of her class. And she perceived education as a window to the world. It was a liberation. It was an intellectual liberation. And that is what gave her a second life. And therefore, she values it. She values art. She values, she values ideas. She values all the forms of art, which is, writing and prose and poetry and so on and so forth. And that is when she realized that a wider world exists, beyond her own existence of just mundane drudgery. And it sort of affirms her identity. The next thing, but that she does is right from the beginning, she realizes that in order to protect this new life of hers, because she doesn't find validation of that in her day-to-day existence, she protects it by hiding it. She does not express her intelligence to anyone but her teacher, to others, to her parents. She doesn't talk about it. And as she grows older, and she becomes a concierge and all that sort of a thing, she lives a very rich intellectual life internally, but she hides it. She goes to great pains to hide it. When she talks to people, she does not allow her erudition to come through. It sometimes slips out, but she doesn't allow it to come through. And she sort of acts out the stereotype. So this is where it is Paloma who sort of says, that Madame Michel is like a hedgehog, absolutely prickly on the outside, but very, very simple inside, very, very elegant. And that's why the title of the books comes off. So and this hedgehog, by the way, when it pulls out its quills, it's keeping people away. And that's exactly what Renée is doing. She's keeping people away because she feels threatened somehow by people. She feels that her true personality will not be able to survive. Points of view from Paloma. According to Paloma, she again, as I said before, she belongs to this affluent family. But nevertheless, she finds that members of this milieu appear extremely pretentious, extremely superficial. And she says that they're all like rats, or they're like goldfish in a bowl, uh, moving around and around, following the same, blueprint which their situations of birth condemns them to. And she says it's like a rat race. It's like a rat on a treadmill, endlessly treading, and is going round and round. She says, I've been born like this. I will go to school. I will go to university. Then I will do this. I will marry. I will marry into a rich person. And then I will have children. And we will keep doing the same old thing. And what's the point of it all? Where is the realness, the authenticity? So this is what she feels. And she says, I don't want to be this. And what is the point of being this? So she takes, this happens very early on. She writes in a diary, I have decided that I'm going to commit suicide. I'm going to end my life on my 13th, on a date she has fixed, which is her 13th birthday or something. So, and she's decided how she'll do it. Over a period of time, she sort of sneaks out a pill, a sleeping pill from her mother, and collects them. She's got a whole collection of it. And she says, this is the only way I can sort of put a stamp on it, on the life, on the meaninglessness. She also, however, perceives these moments of great beauty in art. Somebody's playing something and you stop and it lifts you there. These moments which are described on and off remind me a lot of John Keats's ode on a Grecian urn, and even Ode to a Nightingale, where, this is exactly what he talks about. He says, these moments are so precious, so beautiful, that they sort of lift you out of the moment, lift you out of the in the trap of time, and they immortalize it. And it somehow gives meaning to life. They don't understand how this happens, but now I'll come to the story, which I have said before is very thin. So you have these two similar-minded characters who basically conclude that the world is very meaningless and pretentious, so I will retire from this absurd stage, but in different ways. Renee, she hides her true self beneath a stereotype and distances herself from the world while she searches for meaning and emotional response in creative forces, in art and all that. Paloma decides to end her life rather than subject herself to the futility of a disempowered pattern of life, which is another kind of distancing. Now, what happens is this Monsieur Ozu, Kakuro Ozu, arrives, and he perceives straight away, he's a very polite, cosmopolitan person, and he attracts everybody in the building. But he immediately connects with Madame Michel and Paloma. And he tells Paloma, in fact, see, Paloma and he are the same class. Madame Michel isn't. But this makes no difference to him, and it doesn't make any difference to Paloma either. Now, he tells Paloma, I think Madame Michel is not what she seems to be. The intelligence shines out of her eyes. And I think she loves Tolstoy. And I'm going to present her with a novel. I think she loves Anna Karenina because she has a cat whom she's called something, a character in Anna Karenina. And let me see what happens. And he presents a very, antique kind of a novel, a book of Anna Karenina to her. And Madame Michel doesn't have the heart to refuse it, though her body says, I must. I mean, if I have to act up to my stereotype, I should be completely confused by this, and therefore I should return it back to him, but she can't because it's so beautiful. So this is just a little part of the story. Anyway, he becomes a very authentic friend to both. He invites Paloma home for tea, the only person who gets this honor, and then he invites Renee to dinner. And there are very funny incidents also in between, which I will mention a little later. It gives a lot of life to the book. And I was thinking that his character, perhaps, does it present a better resolution to the dilemma of existence? Because he doesn't bother whether others are pretentious or not. He lives his life. He finds people he likes. Paloma says, he actually sees people as they are and he looks at them. She says, he's the first person I've seen who looks at somebody and sees them. Most of the people she finds, just take them at face value. She says, they only see reflections of themselves, which is again another philosophical rabbit hole. So she says, but he's different, and he goes out, and he's not afraid to break the class distinctions or barriers of class. He's totally unembarrassed about it. He calls a concierge home for dinner, and they have an enormously enjoyable time. They talk about all kinds of things. They find a lot of common interests. That filmmaker whom Renee loves so much, that Ozu, is some kind of a relation of this Mr. Ozu. And, so they discuss that and all kinds of things. So both of them embark on the beginnings of a very meaningful personal interaction, and they taste the joy of friendship and a shared communication, shared wavelength, and emotions. Now, now we come to almost the end of the book. An unforeseen turn of events brings about, as I said, an abrupt reckoning. Now, I've been debating whether I should reveal the end or not. To people who have read the book, it's not a problem, but people who haven't or are wanting to, I think it's quite key that this ending should not be revealed, because otherwise, you lose the impact. Uh, it's a very definite kind of and a very abrupt kind of event which happens. And therefore, I will not reveal it. It's very abrupt, but it has its effect. It has its effect on Kakuro Ozu, of course, is he's very what shall I say, very balanced about it. He feels very sorry that he's lost a friend and so on. I mean, sorry, he feels very. He takes it as it is, that whole event. Paloma reviews her decision to commit suicide, and she says, uh, 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 she says, it's not a solution. Suicide, exiting this life is not a solution. There is a chance for change. And I think that is the message of the book, that you have to find your own meaning in something which transcends the mundane, gritty, nitty-gritty of existence, and allow that to inspire you to change. Paloma uses the metaphor of the Japanese game called Go, and she compares it to chess. She said, in chess, it's a war, and you kill off people, and the person who is left wins. But she says in Go, it's a board game. Superficially, it looks like chess because you have to win. But how do you win? She says, you don't win by killing, you win by earning. It's very territorial. And she says, you have to win by gaining territory. And she said, you can only do that by letting the other person live. So I would like to quote this one thing, if I can find the place. Yeah. So she says, therefore, I must live. I must live and I must construct, because the meaning to life is not in the end so much as what you do with it. And that is a far more positive construction on life. And in the process, if you can create beauty, you can create harmony, then all the better. When she wanted to commit suicide, Paloma said, I think I will also burn down the apartment. I will make sure nobody is there in the apartment, and I will burn it down. And then I will go off to my grandmother's after taking all the pills, and I will quietly die in my sleep there. That was her plan, a detailed plan. But then she starts analyzing and thinking, why do I want to burn? What is it? And then she says, because it's a gesture of frustration and anger. And maybe the greatest anger and frustration come not from unemployment or poverty or lack of a future, but from the feeling that you have no culture between incompatible symbols. How can you exist if you don't know who you are? Are you the one, the pretentious bourgeois, or are you the working class? What are you? Who are you? What are you doing? That's one. So she does that, and I'm afraid I can't find the passage, but it's very good. The language is very good. Anyway, basically, this is what she says. She says, it's the construction which is important. And that is what life is about. You have to build. You don't have to break. You don't have to defeat. It's not a competition. I think that's very important to us and very relevant in this day and age. So that's the title. Okay, so now I'm going to throw up some questions just to show where the book was taking you. So what is the role of Kakuro Ozu in this mise-en-scène? What does he represent? There are some obvious exotic differences. He does things differently. He has a very different concept of aesthetics and so on. He's very kind. He's very urbane, sensitive. He's also very direct. He is also very confident in taking the first step to act out of genuine feeling and empathy. Both Madame Michel hide their true feelings, and they don't interact with people whether they like them or not. They don't. They only interact on a very practical level. Paloma hides. She's a young girl, so she hides, and her mother says, "Oh, that's a very dreamy child," and she's always hiding and getting away from us all, and she's very worried about that. So Paloma also, basically does not interact with anyone, but when she does, she interacts very well. I mean, Kakuro Ozu is a sort of catalytic a force which makes them interact in a very authentic manner. And therefore, does Kakuro Ozu embody the sense of living with integrity? So, conclusion, the prose of this book. Now, when I first read this book many years ago, I loved it. I love the feeling. I love the very chewy intelligence, because both the characters have a very sharp and trenchant sense of humor, of satire. There's a lot of irony. There's a lot of humor. There's a hilarious incident when two dogs are trying to mate, and their very, very prim and proper owners are trying to prevent them. It's hilarious. There is a wonderful situation where Renee goes to Kakuro Ozu's house, and she has to go to the bathroom, and she goes to a very posh and beautiful bathroom. And the moment she pushes the flush, a music comes out, and she's scared out of her wits, and she wonders what's happening. Where is this happening? And then she realizes, and then, later on, Ozu tells her, this is a Japanese thing. They feel that it's more discreet, that when you're pulling the flush, you shouldn't hear the sound of the water. So some music plays. It's some electronics which happens. Anyway, it's very funny. That's hilarious. So all of this was wonderful. So the irony and the humor, the satire, all of that is great. It's a very interesting technique. The book is written. It uses a very interesting technique of two people writing in the first person. A very good delineation, a lot of interesting characters, and there are very serious themes. So there's a lot for the mind to chew on. The cons is it is rather cerebral. In some places, it's very abstract, and the concept needs to be referenced by the reader if you want to get to the bottom of it, and it can drag. It can really drag. And therefore, it's not everybody's cup of tea. But if you have the patience to get through it, it's delightful. Thank you.
Thank you. I think let's switch off. I
Yeah.
see you clearly.
I'll just put this off. Do I do stop share?
Okay, you're through now. Enjoying it very, very much. It makes you think about your own life. When you keep on thinking about it, ठीक किया क्या नहीं at this age, ठीक किया क्या नहीं और कुछ कर सकता था. It's all what we can keep on talking about in our minds. It's there. Here, this young thing is thinking about her tomorrows without whether they're worth it or not worth it. Now, that looks like every child must be doing this. Every one of us, age of 16, 15 onwards, must have been doing this. This is nothing very new. But to be able to get rid of you is one of the most difficult things in life. It's maybe change one's life is a bit easier than getting rid of it. There. That comes out. Now, what's the name, the concierge's name?
Renee Michel.
Renee, I have not quite understood what she is and what is happening to her. I find it a little difficult to say, yes.
Satish, I have a small clip of the trailer of the movie.
Okay.
If you people like, I can play it.
Yeah, do
I
so.
think it's a good idea. Well, very good idea.
Because then it'll give you a flavor of it.
Okay. Yeah, and we have the time. So, yes, please.
Madame de Breuil, votre appartement est au 3e. Elle René, j'ai 54 ans. On ne m'aime pas, mais on me tolère tout de même parce que je corresponds. J'ai parfaitement l'archétype de la concierge d'immeuble. Elle j'ouvre à 8 heures, je repasserai plus tard. Vilaine, vieille, revêche.
Je m'appelle Paloma, j'ai 11 ans. Ma famille est riche.
Ah, Paloma, mais pourquoi est-ce que tu te caches comme ça?
10 années d'analyse, c'est 3 heures par jour à pulvériser des plantes vertes et son impressionnante consommation de substances.
Abstiens-toi.
Je vous présente Monsieur Kakurosh, notre nouveau propriétaire.
Merci, madame. Vu qu'on essaie bien la famille en France.
Oui, une famille heureuse.
Toutes les familles heureuses se ressemblent.
Mais les familles malheureuses le sont chacun à leur façon. Tu es Paloma, n'est-ce pas?
Oui.
Je viens de faire la connaissance d'une autre concierge.
Vous aussi, vous pensez qu'elle n'est pas ce qu'on croit?
Toutes les familles se ressemblent.
Je suis heureux que mon nouvelle ne vous ait pas indispensable.
Merci, mais je suis la concierge. Elle est quoi, Philippe? Quand est-ce que vous y êtes allé pour la dernière fois? Vous savez, je vis seule depuis très longtemps et je sors jamais. Je crains d'être un peu sauvage. Plaisir, chère madame. Elle m'a pas reconnue.
C'est parce qu'on ne vous a jamais vu.
Michel, elle me fait penser à un petit hérisson. À l'extérieur, elle est barbée de piquant. Mais moi, j'ai l'impression qu'à l'intérieur, elle est aussi raffinée que ces petites bêtes faussement indolentes, terriblement élégantes.
Merci.
I can understand her that being intellectual is just not enough. She is not able to go beyond a certain point. Just being intellectual is not enough, but you have to go beyond the point and discover, say, what the world is all about, or discover this, what is God done atom. All these are little things which should come through. But to say that Abhi Mera, I'm finished is giving up. The little girl, I find at a little thing that she should have well, what can I say, that at times I feel that that girl will do wonders when she grows up, because she has an imagination and must require someone to guide her there. She is a child every which way that is there. Her whole thinking is childish. Well, this woman has given up. Even, I love that idea about him giving some dress for her or something like that, which she never. I thought that would be the one where it would sparken up a thing that,
yeah,
this
so
I too can look nice when someone doesn't recognize me.
The story, I have actually missed out critical parts of the story in the end. 2 critical parts. If I do that, then everything comes out. I mean, if that's what brings everything to a head and ties it all up. If you people don't mind, I can say it.
No, don't. Look,
because that's very critical, because there is a psychological reason also why Madame Renée is as she is. And
I would like to find it out myself, but I'll tell you something else. That you see today's worker women who come to your house around, I'm working on the gym, and say you cannot find the difference between A and B. They would be wearing jeans also, or they'll be wearing tracks also. And the lady of the house may be just wearing, what is it, gown that they talk of. And you do not know A from B. And this will be tomorrow in their mind. वो साली देखा वो कैसी आती है, कपड़े कुछ नहीं पहने, हम, look at me, I've taken my time to look good. All that to just clean up the house. That's the thought process would come through in people's minds. That's how I look at it. I think it's a very very truism that you see here. That is a truth that's coming through. A child and a mother, maid are what you see every day, and we don't realize it. Okay, I've taken too much time.
I just want to say a small thing here. Paloma's decision to commit suicide, I think young people, particularly girls of that age, tend to romanticize death. And it's kind of a glorious burning out, I think it's a romanticization. It's hardly the thing to do, actually, but it seems very marvelous in her mind. I remember when we watched Little Women, when we were little children, We read Little Women and then saw the movie. My sister promptly took to that thing of Beth dying at 19. And she must have been 13 or something at that time. But she kept saying, I'm going to die at 19. You know, this thing kind of got into her, this romanticization of
But
death.
I think out here, Paloma is actually, you know, she's very cold-blooded about it. When I first read the book and I came to this, I said, oh my God, this is going to be one of those horribly psychological things where, you know, something is perverted, right? It's not okay. Is she okay psychologically, you know, or what? That is what I thought because it's very serious. But then as the book goes on and she's still thinking about it, you realize what her thought process is. It's so clinical, you know. She's not romantic at all.
Mm-hmm.
Paloma is
Okay.
very, very clinical. And she says, and she says, oh, I know, I am scared of death. I don't want to feel pain. She says that. I do not want to feel pain. And that is why, you know, I have been purloining my mother's pills. She doesn't realize over months. And she says, should be okay if I take a big overdose. I'll just fall asleep and I will do it. You know, on Saturday, my sister goes out to meet her boyfriend. My mother goes XY. My father goes to the club. Nobody's in the apartment. And except the cat, I will take the cats. I will go to my grandmother's house, take the pills, and that's it. And and she plans on also setting fire to the apartment. She says, at least if that happens, it will jolt the entire family out of their complacence, I think, and hypocrisy. It'll make them question things. That is the motive at the back of her mind.
No,
And of
may I just ask you a question here on what you have said?
Yeah.
You have described what you told us for what kind of description there is of her condition and state of mind in the book. Do you agree with it? Do you feel that someone at the age of 11 can think that deeply? Yes, you can be different at 11, yes. But she hasn't even stepped into her teens and she's thinking this big. Does that seem normal to you? A
See,
normal means, acceptable.
Latika, I am accepting a author's premise. It's not for me to ask whether it's possible or not. I mean, look,
Well,
any
it's
work
just
of
whether you can feel
fiction,
convinced by it or not. That is her premise.
yeah.
She can do
So
what she wants.
any work of fiction, the author has set out a
I
premise.
agree.
She's trying to give a message. And so it's what we call willing suspension of disbelief. Yes, I
Yeah.
agree with
So,
you. I agree with you. This is totally unbelievable, actually,
yeah.
that a young girl is. But once you accept, and the way she talks, I suppose the author felt this was the best way she could express it. She could have made her
Possibly.
slightly older, maybe. I mean, I don't know. But
The other thing is Ozu. Why I'm mentioning him is Ozu is one of the three great Japanese filmmakers
there
with
you go.
Kurosawa and Mizoguchi. Now,
Yeah.
Ozu was one of the great ones, and he began by doing small films, and they later went into black and white, and later on into color. And he's a person who made films, later films, with so much steadfastness, with so much patience, with so much gentleness. And the Ozu that you speak about in the book seems to represent a character out of Ozu's novel, Ozu's films.
Probably. And you know, this Michelle, Madame Michelle describes one particular film of Ozu's, which she loved, and she keeps watching it again and again. And she describes it. I think this is a book, Latika. At least you will see the film. I couldn't find the film on YouTube or anywhere else.
Tokyo Story? No, not Tokyo Story. Early Spring.
No.
Late Summer. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Something. So anyway, so she describes it in great detail, and the particular point, you know, something about chameleon moth, you know, which particularly hits her as an exquisite moment, which defies time and so on and so forth. So yeah.
I only mentioned Ozu because the character Ozu in
Yeah,
the
I
book
told you.
seems to be
Yes,
taken out of one of the films.
yes, yes.
Sheena, you're taking off somewhere. Why don't you ask anything you have to say now?
Uma had raised her hand.
No, but
Urmila
I'm
had
asking
raised her hand.
Sheena because Sheena has to go out. So
Okay.
Sheena said that I'll be going out. So I'm asking Sheena to talk about it.
Well, I read the book completely with Runa, and it was quite interesting because we chatted while we were reading the book. So I think I asked you private questions, right, Runa?
Yeah.
So I don't really have much to ask now. you
No,
know.
no,
Yeah.
but why not a private question?
And
Ask
the
us.
end,
Why
and
not a
the
private
end,
question
and
for
you know,
us to
and the
ask?
end, there's quite a spoiler, so she's not going to give it away. So if you've not read the book, you're not going to get the spoiler. You
Yeah,
give
that's
it
why I
away,
have.
huh.
But Sheena, you can answer Latika's question. Do you think that Paloma is believable?
I think she's too grown up, you know, the
For
way.
her age, right?
Precocious.
And
But
for someone who doesn't talk much to her family members and she doesn't care about any of them, and she doesn't really have much interaction except one friend she has, right? I forget her name. I don't know how she gleans all this from books alone. Is she doesn't engage with anyone in the building until that Japanese man comes along. Yeah, she's very precocious. She's like Kafka when I discussed that book, you know. So he's also very precocious. But there are young children and people like this who are actually today, you know, the world has changed.
yes,
You can't look at it when we were 15. When I was 15, I was very stupid, I thought. When I'm reading these books now, they are so grown up because the world's different now, right? Yeah, that's the thing.
That's true.
Oh, okay, there's some new name right here. Cise Org.
Oh, that's
No, no,
Alka.
sorry. That's
Huh?
me. That's me.
Alka.
I'm so sorry. I completely missed the time, and I just realized. I'm so sorry. I logged in through my office Zoom in my hurry. I'm there. I'm there. Please carry
Go
on.
ahead, go ahead. Your question now, or statement, or whatever.
No, no, I just wanted to. I really am so sorry, Runa. I wanted to attend this thing so badly, and I'll hear the recording. But I love the book. I love
you
the
love
book
the book.
absolutely.
I
Yeah,
love the
yeah.
book. Yeah.
It's a beautiful one. Anyway, I'll listen to the recording because I would really like to know what all you guys were talking about. I'll listen later.
Yeah, but
Okay.
you're welcome to, say anything that you thought about the
See,
book.
Without
first,
giving away the spoiler. I have not mentioned the last bit. No spoiler.
okay. Oh, that's good. Thanks. Thanks for letting me know. I was about to say something about that.
No.
No, I won't. No, the first thing which I thought was, I think the book was very funny.
Yes.
I mean, I was listening to it and I kept kind of smiling and giggling to myself. So that I thought was really funny, very tongue-in-cheek, very witty. And I mean, I'm sure Runa, you must have covered it, but is she an English author? Is she a French?
She's a French author.
She's a French author. Okay, because the name I wasn't sure. Okay, because that's what it is. And I think when they were the audiobook, it has two different voices.
Yes.
Again, I'm sure you may have covered that
I have
in
seen
this
that.
thing. Yeah, so that was very nice. I really like that a lot.
Mm.
So it was really good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Something?
1 minute. Urmila is
Yeah,
waiting.
sure.
After Urmila, Kaveri, and after Kaveri, you. Come on. Urmila.
Hi, Urmila here. You may not be able to see me because of various reasons properly. My question was, you said that when you first read the book, and after so many years, when you again looked at the book, there was a difference in how you felt about the book. Could you share something with that?
Yes, it was, when I read the book first, I loved that part so much that the flow of the book took me through, including all the difficult bits. When I reread it, I realized that, lot of the philosophical and abstract bits would not appeal to everybody. And that's why I admitted the fact that it can drag in parts.
Okay.
But when I read it first, I did not feel that at all, to be frank.
Thank you.
Okay. I think Kaveri is waiting in line. Kaveri.
Yeah. Can you hear me? Yeah. Runa, that's a wonderful presentation. The book sounds very intriguing. I have some kind of peripheral questions to ask. De Broglie, was that character developed at all?
In little bits, yes. Interaction between de Broglie and Paloma's mother,
Okay.
And Paloma's sitting on the sidelines and saying, look, my mother is accepting an invitation. And de Broglie is coming along and talking because she wants to talk about Ozu. But, she's calling her and, she's giving a very hypocritical reason. I mean, that whole interplay that happens, it's a sort of social interplay, which we are all very familiar with. And Paloma in the background saying, but actually this is what she wants and this is what mother wants. And therefore this is what they're saying to each other. You know, those layers of meaning which comes across is very funny.
Okay. So the reason I was asking is I said, this is a very kind of peripheral thought which comes to my mind. The book seems to be sort of more metaphorical than literal. This very precocious young girl, which seems highly unlikely that somebody can be like that at that age. You know, you mentioned Descartes, and see, as a science student, in de Broglie was his theory was about the duality of particles. That particles display a wave nature, right? And Descartes also the mind and the body. And I was just wondering, you know, the bodily representation of Rene is so much at variance with the highly evolved mind she has. So that's why I asked: is de Broglie also?
No, I'm afraid not.
Sort of.
That
I don't suppose any of these are done randomly. Perhaps this is all part of her.
Maybe. The Descartes part, the Descartes part that my little research told me is he believed that the mind and the body are actually separate and the mind is superior to the body.
Right.
Now, this is what Paloma has a problem with.
Yeah. And de Broglie's wave equation was very interesting. It's one of those parts of more relating to quantum physics where a particle can have wave qualities. So that there is a duality in a physical representation. So I thought that is sort of what the story also...
The literature getting turned up with science.
Yeah, well,
because a lot of science has a lot of philosophy.
No?
Yeah.
Post Second World War, in fact, this whole Cartesian thing has taken sway. It's taken hold of our lives, which is why we separate the mind and the body in everything, including medical treatment, which is wrong in my view. So, you know.
Yeah. And which is, you know, if you look at Indian philosophy, there are two schools
totally
of philosophy,
different.
the duality and the monism. So it's very interesting. Yes. Very interesting.
Okay. I'm going to ask Virginia to speak up. And after Virginia, I would like, where is Wispy? Wispy to talk. So Virginia, go ahead.
Well, what I would like to say is that when I read a book, I've got to completely believe everything the author tells me. So I had no trouble with Paloma being so wise. But I do think that children that are 11, they can notice and feel all the kind of things she did. They might not have the ability yet to articulate it in our vocabulary and in our terms the way she does. But it's just amazing what children are able to understand about adult interaction. And I think that's a wonderful part of this book, that we learn that she sees all of this.
Wispy, as soon as the vacation time is over, Wispy is going to give us, will be talking about. But right now, Wispy, what was your take on today's book?
Yeah, well, I also read it a while ago and I loved it. And actually, we had it in our Bombay Gymkhana book club for discussion, but that was some years ago. I'm inclined to agree with what Virginia just said, though a lot of people felt that at 11, how could Paloma have the line of thinking that she had? I think a child who keeps to herself, a child who does a lot of reading, and does not have a family who she can confide in or who try to understand her, is bound to then have her own self-development. And I had found her reasonably convincing. And I think this whole depiction of an apartment block in so many ways makes us think of our own circumstances. At least in Mumbai, most of us live in these sort of apartment blocks. And if you can give me a minute, I had found a paragraph which I thought summed it up so well.
Yes, please.
Would you like me to just refer to it?
Yes,
it's in the chapter called Beneath the Skin. And of course, Monsieur Ozu's arrival has made changes. I think in a way, he is like almost like a sounding board to see the others buy. And I'll just very quickly read only a part of this. For over a fortnight now, all the talk in the building is of Monsieur Ozu moving into the apartment of the late Pierre Papin. In this frozen place, this glacial prison of power and idleness. I mean, look at the way the apartment residents are being described. In this frozen place, this glacial prison of power and idleness, the arrival of a new resident and the unbelievable things that, under his orders, a whole host of professional contractors have been getting up to, their numbers so impressive and so on. This arrival, therefore, has brought with it a wave of excitement and panic all at the same time. Excitement because it's something new, panic that it will change, perhaps affect their way of living, which on the whole is so superficial. And so it goes on. For the conventional aspirations to see tradition maintained and the contingent disapproval of anything that might remotely evoke newly acquired wealth. They're, those ostentatious way of life that they have. In a way, I think they feel almost threatened that someone so different, like, that sort of, and that's why he's Japanese, totally different from the others. He's not just another Frenchman with a more refined way. So I think I'll just stop there. I think she makes us think, and she makes us look at ourselves, at our lives. I think also what Satish said, for people who come in to work for us, for so many of us, it's we hardly glance at their face or their appearance. They've come, they've done our work for us, and they've gone. I think very few of us treat them in the sense we may be very all right with them. We're not mean or cruel, but do we really look at them at human beings who have their own difficulties? And
Mohini, tell her about what we do. What I do, about our people's maids, etc. When they come, they talk and all that. Good mornings and everything. Teach them. Go ahead.
Just that he's very chatty. Satish is very chatty. He makes the maids talk. He teaches them a little English, So one of them has been taught to say good morning when she comes. Another says namaste, and so on and so forth.
I think that's important. I mean, I talk also, like to the liftman, the watchman, little things,
Oh yeah, it's very important.
Yeah.
It's very, very important. And particularly as we are senior citizens and we may not be in a position to, take action if something happens. These are the people who are going to come to your aid or any which way. You have to realize that.
Of course, we rely on them. We rely on them. So I know little things like गांव में अभी गर्मी हो रही क्या? अच्छा बारिश तो खेती के लिए अच्छा है नहीं है? I just talked to one of them who's relatively new.
You're very right.
They like to interact.
Interaction, on a human level, on a personality level, is very important in what Paloma says is building. You're building instead of just confronting or existing parallel lives. You're interacting, and that is building something. It's building a certain.
It's like building a bridge. Yeah.
And it gives you a feeling of we're all in it together.
Okay, I'm going to ask Alka. She's got a hand up. After Alka, Sunita being very quiet, I think I'm going to ask her to speak.
Yeah, I had a question, Runa. I mean, when I was listening to the book, I thought that the chapters were very small. Is that true?
That's true.
That's true. And I mean, I don't know whether you talked about it or not, but is there any reason you think why they're so small?
No, I think, that way the book is not really very long. It's only 350 pages, and it's quite fast. And I suppose, if you have one person talking, you can't have him talking forever and ever. You have to change the pace. It's like a dialogue almost, or a point counterpoint. So I think it works very naturally. Yeah.
Okay.
Can I just ask one question to Runa?
Yeah.
What you make about the title and the hedgehog in the title? Because there is I was looking up just now while so others were speaking about this metaphor of hedgehog and fox in English literature. And would you bring out what a hedgehog represents as against what a fox represents?
Yes. Okay. I read this somewhere, and there is so much to discuss really. This book has layers and layers of meaning. So the hedgehog, I mean, I didn't go into it in too much detail. Why don't you talk about it?
Well, no, I was just looking at something when people were speaking, and there are many different ways of different ways of looking at the hedgehog. But what I found was that these are popular metaphors, for fox and hedgehog, for two different styles of thinking. The fox is more diffuse, with a breadth of knowledge and the ability to use multiple frameworks to understand the world. The hedgehog is more focused, with deep knowledge of one thing, using a single idea or frame of reference. Now, I don't think that is the only interpretation. There could be other interpretations also.
Now
fox and hedgehog are two representative
are a theme, yeah. But I think in this book, I did come across this definition, and I said, but it's not fully applicable here. I think what is applicable here simply, and because it ties up in the later incidents, she has a hedgehog as a prickly thing which keeps people out. Hedgehog quills are primarily a form of self-protection. And Renee is protecting herself all the time. There is a question, what is she protecting herself against? And it does come out in the end. There are incidents which go back to her childhood, which comes out in the end.
Okay.
And therefore, this whole business. But inside, she is, as you say, quite focused and intelligent and whatever.
Even Paloma says that. Yes. Paloma mentions that, right? Paloma is the one who talks about elegance.
She's the one who mentions it very beautifully.
Sanjay is left, Sanjay and Urmila, and then Moini takes over.
Sanjay. You're letting Sunita off the hook suddenly.
Oh yeah, Sunita, there she is. Okay. Sanjay, Urmila and Sunita.
I'll very quickly say, Runa, I'm reading the book right now. I haven't finished it. I promised to finish it before this, but I didn't manage to. But I'm enjoying it tremendously. And what a wonderful presentation, Runa. Thank you so much. You did such a phenomenal job of it. I just feel like I read a book from at such a superficial level. And you guys do such a great job of just digging, sinking your teeth in, which I hope I'll be able to do one day. But to come to the point, I'm enjoying the language of the book.
Isn't it?
The translator has done such a phenomenal
job.
Yeah. Really lovely. So I'm enjoying it tremendously.
Okay, Sanjay, you next.
Hi, can you hear me?
Then Urmila, and then Moini takes over.
Yeah, Satish, can you hear me?
Clearly.
Yeah, okay, so I've read the book, and I must say I liked it very much. I think the lady who's written she's an exceptional talent. And it's not very often that you come across such brilliant humor, such sharp wit, and such profound wisdom rubbing shoulders in the same stunning narrative. And I found the narrative truly stunning. And when Runa says that parts of the book lag, I really can't quite agree with that. I mean, there are places where you have to reread because you're not sure you've grasped the meaning. After all, she has been teaching philosophy at the university level. So you have to make a bit of an effort. But I thought the book is truly exceptional, Satish. And I enjoyed it very much. I liked it very much. And this is building on what was said earlier. The need to introduce a Japanese and not an Italian or a German or a Dutch. Does it point in some indirect way to the innate sterility of Western civilization, that you need to have a non-Western person come to inject new life into that building, into its residence? That was one of the things that struck me. And also on the translation is so good that I can't rid myself of the notion that there's been a decent amount of embellishment. Because frankly, I find it hard to believe that any translation can read so well. It's very difficult to believe, quite frankly. So I don't know French, so I can't read the original. But I will not be surprised if it's more than a translation, shall we say. But thanks, Runa. It was a beautiful book, and I really enjoyed it. And you did a very good job, like the presentation, like everybody said, without giving away the spoilers. You covered a lot of ground you covered without giving away the end and what happened in the childhood. Yeah.
Urmila,
Thanks.
Urmila, don't hide. Just start saying and say hi at least. What you have to say. A few lines.
I did ask my question. For some reason, the hand won't go down.
That's hilarious. So you will always be saying yes.
Yeah. Thank
Okay. Mo, take over.
Mohini, may I just respond about the
Whisper, yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't put up my hand. No, what Sanjay said about the translation. I mean, I read French, but I haven't got this book in its original. But from the point of view of the translator, as a general observation, a translator doesn't need to follow in a word-for-word fashion.
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
translator has the liberty to bring in the flavor of the language in which the original
is written. Yes.
To give it that same sort of impact. And I think to that extent, I would say that Sanjay's observation is good, but I'm sure the translator did an excellent job to make English readers feel probably what the way the French readers must have reacted. This was just my take.
Yeah, in fact, I was saying that about this thing about the translation, certainly the novel reads very well and it reads very fluently. So you do not suspect, that you're not reading an originally written text. And I just want to mention that Pratima Agnihotri, who isn't here today, but she said this. She said that the language of the book echoes the French very beautifully, and she teaches French. So I thought, that should be mentioned, that all of you agree on that. And don't you think lately we have come across such good translators?
Yeah.
Georgy Gospodinov's book also, Time Shelter, has been so well done. And Daisy Rockwell, my goodness, she's a rock star. Absolutely. I mean, Tomb of Sand
Was beautiful.
I mean, it's so much longer than the original Hindi. So clearly her input is very much there. And
Even Frederick Bachman, all his books are translated beautifully.
Beautifully. True.
Yeah,
Bachman's translator is fantastic.
Yeah. And Elena Ferrante's books, I mean, they're so well done.
In fact, a translator job is partially, it's creative.
It's
creative.
It's not merely just,
you have to get into the spirit. You should have the spirit of the other language in you, your own and another. You have to have the spirit of two languages.
Yeah. It's not transliteration. It's not that at all. That's what it should not be. Okay, about this Ozu guy, I mean, Sanjay said something about having to bring in a Japanese person. That also, I thought, that it's that inner understanding, that understanding the inner greater evolution possibly that he has gone through, which makes him able to recognize, Renee for what she is rather than what she appears to be, and recognize so quickly. I mean, it's not a matter of time that over time he begins to suspect and then he just knows promptly. So
the key is that quotation, no?
Yeah, the quotation. That's what I was going to say. Because of the quotation, he
from Anna Karenina, that all families are happy.
But he catches it and he promptly from it, So I think that there is something about that person being Japanese, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, Occidental versus Western philosophy, thinking, mannerisms, the evolution, as you're saying. I think that is the reason why it had to be a Japanese.
Yeah, it had to be from the East.
Oriental.
Not
Why?
just
No, I didn't quite understand.
Japanese.
Why did it have to be Japanese? I didn't understand.
Because they think in holistic terms.
Yeah.
And they believe in personality. They are not always dividing mind and body.
They're more deep thinkers. They focus more on the inside rather than the outside.
I mean, they're more sensitive to it.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And yet they are also West, in the sense they also have Western sensibilities. So he was able to appreciate art as well as, look on the inside.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
that is why it couldn't have been a Chinese. It could probably have been Indian. It had to be a Japanese, I think.
Okay,
I
I
don't
think
know. I
I
thought
need
it
to
had
read
been a
about that.
person from the
Had to
East.
be an Oriental, let's put it
Yeah.
that way.
Oriental, yeah.
I
Yeah.
need to read about this. I'm not convinced yet. Let me
You need to read
it
the book,
down. Yeah.
Satish. You need to read the book.
I've got a dozen books, more than a dozen now. This is added on. We are going abroad, and I think the books are going to be, will be charged for the weight of the books more. No, my daughter will I bet my daughter has most of them. She is a collector.
The audio book.
Yeah, really.
Audio
Listen to
book.
audiobook. It's fantastic.
Audio book is beautiful.
Beautiful.
Very
Okay. Satish, I noticed you didn't ask Chetan to say anything. He's there, Chetan, would you
Chetan,
like
are you there?
to?
Or you just
Would
shut
you
up?
like to?
Yeah, there.
Yeah. I
Apologies.
thought I would get away, but yeah.
I'm
No,
very
I'm
observant.
very as usual. I'm fascinated with the discussion that follows the book review, and I think that I learned so much from that. But I'm very keen to know this comparison between Go and chess, and I hope that Runa can find that line and share it.
have you read that book called Shibumi?
No.
It's one of those books on Japan, and it's all about Go. And I read it then. So when it cropped up here, I went into it a bit more, and that comparison fascinated me. This book is very fascinating.
With the Shibumi, why don't you give it? Put it on.
No. That's
WhatsApp.
In some ways the Shibumi is a potboiler. So
that doesn't matter, love. It's always.
I can't. It's massively thick. It's all action. It takes place with a Japanese background. Choro. I can't read that again.
Okay. Yeah, she's escaping.
So,
I can feel her escape immediately. I give up. Where's my? No one is there. Gautam is not there, and neither Sanjay is there.
Yeah.
Two
And some
people
people
who
have
come
left,
to
Satish.
support. No way. All the girls. Come on, Mo. Take over and save me from all these girls.
Yeah. So I think we should wind up now. And I would like to, agree with all of you that Runa's presentation was excellent. And I'm so happy to see how many people have read the book. I must say, I did not expect this. I did not expect so many people to have read it. I hadn't heard of the book until Runa mentioned it. And luckily, I was able to lay my hands on it. And so I read it. Sorry, my throat has gone for a toss. But thank you, everyone. All the best. Happy reading. Bye for now. See you on the 14th.
Thank you.
Okay.